Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. I'm Nkechi Nana.
And I'm Rufai Yoseni. It's a joy seeing you again, Nkechi. All right, since the return of democratic rule in Nigeria, so much has been said concerning the rule of law, especially from the perspective of government officials. It will be recalled that the present administration is known for fighting corruption, tackling security problems, and reviving the economy, a watchword that has been clearly written in their manifesto in 2015.
Also subjecting these three watchwords to the rule of law, as observed by experts, are foundational and settled concepts of any worthwhile democracy, as clearly stated in the Nigerian Constitution, that all people and institutions are subject to the accountable and the law with no exceptions.
However, as the Nigerian Bar Association Week begins with the theme Facing the Future, one thing that is certain is the rule of law in Nigeria that has continuously generated arguments from scholars, experts, and the citizen.
Most analysts have constantly stated that the rule of law in Nigeria has always been ignored or not adhered to. Yet, what separates a well-functioning democracy from non-democracies or illiberal democracies is the rule of law.
Joining us now to discuss the rule of law in Nigeria is Monday Onyekachi Ubani, second vice president, Nigerian Bar Association, and former chairman, Nigerian Bar Association Ikeja branch. He'll be joined by Clement Chukwuemeka Clement, I should say, chairman, Nigerian Bar Association, Barr chapter in Abuja. It's a joy having both of you here. And let us start from what happened yesterday at the Nigerian Bar Conference, Nigerian Bar Association Conference, when the issue of onoghens was mentioned at the plenary session moderated by, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Police Agbakoba. And there was a lot of back and forth. So let's start. What were the issues surrounding that? And the Barr and Agbakoba issue. Let's look at it again.
That's a very good one. I was there in the hall, and the crowd, it was much. I raised my hand in order to also contribute, but that opportunity was not given because, one, we were working against time. And as I said earlier, the hall was completely filled with lawyers. And everyone, wanted to say one thing or the other with regards to onoghens. But unfortunately, the issue of time didn't allow that. And to me, the issues were not resolved. Onoghens issue was not resolved. And I'm not happy. Maybe during the annual general meeting that will take place tomorrow, we usually have an annual general meeting, the opportunity will be given once again for the onoghens matter to be trashed out.
Okay.
Because as I look at it, the precedent that was set in onoghens matter, if we allow it to stand, is going to be a very dangerous precedent. The issue is not about innocence or guilt of onoghens. What every lawyer who knows the law should be quarreling about is the processes and procedure. Was the process and procedure that was employed in the removal process of onoghens in accordance with the law? We're talking about rule of law, and rule of law is where law reigns supreme and not the rule of an individual. And so it's important we look at the process and procedure that was used. So if that process and procedure was wrong, we say it so that it doesn't act as a precedent. If you establish that as a precedent, then it's a very dangerous one at that. So it's important we have time as lawyers to really look at onoghens issue once again.
But it's a precedent already because it has happened. I mean,
exactly, that's what I wanted to say.
It has happened.
The rule of law really follows precedent and stare decisis. And you agreed that, you've mentioned that the procedures and some of the processes which were entrenched in the onoghens case were contentional and maybe even unconstitutional. I want to ask about the role of the Barr in the promotion of rule of law in Nigeria. Do you think that the role of the NBA was adequately promoting the rule of law during that particular case? And in other cases that we've been seeing recently in Nigeria, really?
Yeah, you must understand also the role of NBA. Okay. NBA, under our constitution, is not recognized as any arm of the government. We have three arms of government. We have the executive, we have the legislative, and then we have the judiciary.
Well, surely the Barr has the right to speak up.
The Barr speaks. The Barr should be a voice for the voiceless, but also find out what that role, whether it has been played perfectly, which is what I think you are asking. But they have no role of implementing. They have no role of enforcement. They can only speak. And you remember that in onoghens matter, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association called out lawyers to boycott the court for 2 days. There were disagreements with certain persons from certain regions. It was politicized. So the voice of MBA was not one in regards to the issue of onoghen. And that is one of the things we need to kill amongst us as lawyers if we really want to make any impact in our society. So what I'm trying to say is that you must understand the role of MBA. MBA can only speak. MBA can only protest. MBA can only raise a voice. MBA cannot implement. MBA does not enforce the law. But the role of speaking out, of course, we need to do more because for some time now, MBA has actually not been doing that role perfectly because it remains the voice of the voiceless. We see what happened in Pakistan when the country's president, I understand, removed the CJ of that particular country wrongly. Lawyers trooped into the street, rendered the country inoperative and made the country ungovernable until that particular decision was reversed. So we need to do more. But remember also that sometimes when you do these things, people begin to look at you from the prism of, ethnicity and religion. Oh, the president, where is he from? Oh, maybe he's supporting the said person because they are from the same region and all that. So Nigeria's situation is very peculiar. So we have to also to be careful in whatever we do. But the most important thing which you have raised and which I agree with you is that MBA need to speak more. We need to raise more voices. We need to, be on the vanguard to speak against oppression or against trampling of the rule of law. Very important. Because if the rule of law is not allowed to triumph in any country, that country is clearly going to be in crisis and anarchy, and that is not what we want for us as a nation.
I'd like to bring Mr. Clement here in this conversation and talk in the lines of this, the MBA speaking up on this. Somebody remembers the MBA in the days of Akeredolu, a very vibrant MBA that comes out and speaks for itself. Yeah. Why has there been sort of like a slippery slope? And there are some cases, should we go to the case of Justice Ayal Salami? It goes on and on like that. Why has the MBA not started speaking for itself again?
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. First and foremost, we have to look at the theme of this particular conference, facing the future. We have a president who really have seen the lapses that actually the past administration must have done, and we are looking at the future this time around, and the future is for us, most young lawyers, for us to take the bull by the horn and make sure that that everything is done according to the tenets of the law, especially as it regards to MBA Constitution, because we are the voice for the voiceless. And we have to take it up from the branches. As a branch chairman, I'm just about 2 months old in office, and I know that I have kicked the ground running. And in Abuja, definitely the aspect of kind of infringement on people's rights, definitely we have to eradicate it totally, because I, with the team of lawyers in Buhari Barr, because if you know the history of Buhari Barr, a lot of people focus their attention at Unity Abuja branch. Buhari Barr is the custodian of the headquarters of law school. Virtually all the law lecturers and professors are part of my members. And definitely we are there to set a pace. And just be rest assured that MBA voice would come up very, very soon.
So you've spoken about setting a pace in the Buhari branch of MBA in Abuja. Can you tell us some of those things which you're implementing to make the Nigerian Bar Association seem like it's speaking up more on issues of rule of law, separation of power in Nigeria?
Now, upon my assumption, immediately we created what we call State of the Nation Committee, which is headed by one erudite and human rights lawyer, Maxwell Obara. He's a very known Abuja human rights lawyer. And we shall be speaking purposely for the voiceless. And we have started that. We have engaged in some media outfits wherein we make a lot of contributions and ask people who are being infringed upon to come over to the Secretariat, because our Secretariat is just very, very conspicuous. People can walk in and make a claim. And we are partnering with all the DPOs in that area, which I expect all the branches over the country to partner with their DPOs. They are really friends, and we should take them to be that they are good friends. And by the time, because we can curtail most of the human rights activities at the police station instead of going a little bit further. And we have a lot of cases. We are taking one from Abia State. It's a very notorious one, but very soon, definitely, we shall come up with a very lovely protest wherein the Buhariba will take up a protest for that. A man killed a wife, but it's a long story here, definitely.
Right. Let me take you on this. The case was also made for lawyers in government. And I'll give a very strong instance, how lawyers in government and in various parastatals, because they're in government now, they fail to speak up when these infractions happen. I'll give you a very strong parastatal. In 87, 88, 89, between that period, the present secretary to the federal government, Boss Mustafa, was the chairman of Yola branch. And we all remember that famous case where he pushed the Nigeria Bar Association against an infraction that is happening. But currently, there are cases of the government not obeying court order. Somebody will only think that somebody in the like of Boss Mustafa will be able to stand up and to the government and say, we need to obey court order in various cases set down. Why is it that when lawyers get to government position, they flip?
In fact, one of the things that was canvassed during the discussion yesterday was the issue of punishing the erring lawyers who are lawyers to government that actually disobeys court orders, that work against the interest of the law. That we should definitely make a pronouncement and put a policy in place to ensure that those erring lawyers are punished. And I agree with that suggestion. There is no way you have lawyers who advise government to disobey court order. And we have them. There was a particular governor that called a lawyer who filed a case against the state government and said, we know what to do. You know that we can bring a motion for stay of execution with your judgment you have gotten, and we go on appeal. And you know the appeal process, how long it takes. By the time you think you can succeed in whatever you are pursuing against us, would have been out of government. That is what a governor was telling a lawyer. And that advice must have been given to him by the Attorney General or by a lawyer who is supposed to be his advisor. And so we have a situation where lawyers are actually working in collaboration with the executive to trample our law, especially in terms of advice. And I think it's high time the NBA takes a definite position in what punishment should be meted out to such erring lawyers. I agree with you.
You
definitely, I have to speak on in line with branches. Every member of the NBA belongs to a branch. And we have a committee, disciplinary committee, enshrined instituted in those.
Which is always led by the vice chairman.
Vice chairman, that's the human rights.
Yeah, the human
it's the human rights section that is, but on the disciplinary issue, you can appoint somebody who is very, very known and somebody who would stand and not be biased and not be cowed by anybody. Right now, the issue we have to stretch it further. These are things definitely we should be raising up. I actually raised my hand seriously yesterday to contribute my quota towards that area. But a particular young guy, actually asked such question, but not the way I could have asked that question. But the whole thing is just that for us to know that all the legal departments of every organization is headed by a lawyer.
Okay, we'll come back after this quick break. We'll still talk to Barrister Monday Ubani, Barrister Chukwuemeka Clement right here. Monday Ubani and Chukwuemeka Clement, I should say. We'll be right back and we'll talk some more after this. Still the morning show here on Arise News. We've got Monday Onyekachi Ubani and Chukwuemeka Clement, both lawyers attending the Nigerian Bar Association conference right here in Lagos, Eco Hotel. And we're talking about the rule of law in Nigeria. There's something quickly I want to take you on. I think it was Professor Neil Ferguson. I think it was the 2012 or 2013 BBC Read Lecture, where he talked about the distinction between the rule of law and the rule of lawyers. And it's a case that is very apt for the Nigeria we live in today, and the conduct of the bar, the rule of law and the rule of lawyers. It looks as though the rule of lawyers are taking supremacy over the rule of law. What's your reaction to that?
Was he actually addressing the rule of law or the role of lawyers?
No, the rule of lawyers. The fact that lawyers can, like you say in your own words, you know, give counter counsel to be able to subjugate the rule of law.
No, the point is this. That's why we have two contending parties in any case. If you have a lawyer for the defense, you have the lawyer for the prosecution. But there is an arbiter. There is an impartial arbiter that takes evidence from both parties and then reaches a decision. So for the fact that lawyers are taking opposite direction does not mean there is anything wrong with it. But the point is that what is the supremacy of the truth of both contentions? At the end, there must be an arbiter. And there must be something that you know that this is right. Even if you are taking opposite view, you know that this is what the law says. At the end of the law, at the end of the entire thing, the definition of what the law says must be given proper interpretation.
So I'll give you a clear instance of the rule of law.
Yes.
This example you gave just before we went on the break of a council that might have counseled the state government to say, okay, you know what, we will go to appeal. You as a lawyer that you're trying to defend the truth, you will waste your time. And that's what we are having in so many cases out there. Another case in point, Nigeria government versus El Zakzaki. Another case in point is constantly what is happening to Omoyele Sowore in detention for 45 days. Quoting the Terrorism Act, a lot of people are saying that's not the case. And they are making those cases in court. The DSS has got a legal team too, representing it.
As I said earlier, I think the NBA need to do more. Because, you know, I was a victim also. I was put into detention, and there was a court order. And the court order is charge this man within so time or release him on bail. That particular judgment was not obeyed until we commence contempt proceedings. We could not allow it. Now, there is also a case now that is now pending before CP of Cross River. One Jalingo, Abba Jalingo, was arrested. He was invited to come to Cross River. That is a complaint against him because he has been having a running battle with the state governor. And it's okay, I'm coming so the date with my lawyer. 3 days to the time, police came all the way from Cross River to Lagos and picked him. And since Friday, or since Thursday, Abba Jalingo has been in detention. He has not been charged to court. What I hear now is that they're trying to now get a court order to legitimize his detention. And that order will be given by the court. That is another issue we need to discuss, even during our annual general meeting tomorrow. That issue of court now being used to legitimize illegal detention of citizens must stop. It's either you put that party on notice, whose particular detention is now being extended, because the law says for 24 hours, or at most, where there is no court within radius, 48 hours.
Let's explore that case, because I have a background to that case. The editor of Cross River Watch. And what has been going on is just somebody performing citizen journalism. He's had running battles with the governor of Cross River State. The governor of Cross River State even came out openly to say that why he's writing things against him is because he didn't give his wife money. To do a certain surgery and things like that. And you can see the lot of this. And there are some lawyers advising them that this is the way to go. So is this not the rule of lawyers as well?
Yeah, just to add to what Rufai has said. Earlier you mentioned the government not adhering to court orders in i.e. releasing people who have been in detention. And most times the Attorney General of the Federation always gives this excuse maybe of the interest of national security trumping the rule of law or the court order. Even last year in the NBA conference, President Buhari said the rule of the interest of national security trumps the rule of law. So what's your take on that?
We have said it even after the president came, that, look, we need to define what is the the issue of national interest. Because it can be subjective. Are you following me? We must define it objectively.
But who has the role of defining what? It is
the judiciary. The judiciary has the final say. Because in Dokubo's case they are citing, it was a court that said what it said. That if there is contending interest of the national interest and the individual interest, that national interest will prevail. But the court will be in a position to look at those contending factors and before making that beautiful. Now, I agree with the Supreme Court. I don't see anything wrong with what the Supreme Court has said. In the case of Dasuki, the same court now you are quoting is now saying, I have looked at your evidence. I have looked at the man's evidence. I think that the man should be released on bail or charged to court. You now quote Asari Dokubo's case, because you are the one now interpreting it now, because the court has given final decision, release this person on bail. You now quote the Dokubo's case and say that national interest prevails over individual interest. You are quoting that law wrongly, because it was the same court that said this. So if the court now has said, I have looked at the international interest, I have looked at the personal interest, I think in this case, the personal interest supersede. Release him on bail or charge him to court. Why are you now disobeying that court order and then quoting Asari Dokubo's case that was also reached by the Supreme Court?
And even the Asari Dokubo case, that was a bit of a different situation, because it was a bail application where the defendant did not deny the treasonable allegations that were made against him. So the court could not even help him. I'm
very happy that you have read the facts of the case. But the most important factor we must distinguish here is that it is court that finally look at all the contending factors and made that decision. It's important we know that. So if the same court now has also now said, having looked at all the factors, all the facts you have presented, I think that this man should go on bail. For God's sake, why would you now quote Asari Dokubo's case in a case where the court has said this is the right thing to do? So in Jalingo's, for us, Abba Jalingo's case, as I said earlier, another issue we must begin to explore is the issue of legitimizing illegal detention using the court. Because it's something now that is, if you don't treat it, Showore's case also is there now, where they were asking for 90, the court gave now 45. We have seen what goes on in developed societies. When they have any criminal case, they'll take time to investigate. This FBI case, they said they started even in 2016. Before they now started to arrest these guys, they have almost concluded their investigation. Very soon now, those cases will go to court. They don't go and head and detain you and begin to look for evidence, which is what we're doing here.
I'd like to get your view, Mr. Chukwuemeka, on this Agbaja Lagos case, because a lot of people, a lot of watchers look at the frivolity of the case. At first, they were both banters across board. You know, a governor coming to terms with, I didn't give your wife money to do a fertility surgery, you know, and this man kept on doing his job, publishing, you know, allocation and things like that, which is contained and enshrined under the Freedom of Information Bill and things like that. And the next thing, he's arrested.
And they're looking for charges.
And they're looking for charges against him.
Definitely, my contribution, because I have not really gone through that particular case very well. But I know the governor of Cross River as a very good gentleman. And that calls for us to even look at most of these advisors. And some of the commissioners and aides around the governor, like one of our very good colleagues, one we call one former Senate president named like Okadibu, who happens to be one of my colleagues. And, you know, I am aware that the governor definitely will listen very, very well. I think maybe after this particular show, definitely I will put a call across and find out why, if there are any interferences on that particular thing. Definitely the governor, I know, will really act very, very speedily and very, very, you know, in tenets of the rule of law. A journalist actually have to be very, very free to report whatsoever. We can look at it from the international climb, where you throw banters even to a sitting president. If you do it here, definitely...
A clear case is the clear case of Jim Acosta of CNN and the White House.
That's right.
When Jim Acosta was pulled out of the White House, and Jim Acosta of CNN took the American government to court as regards that, based on his reporting.
That's right.
Speaking on governments, now we've established the role of the Barr in promoting the rule of law.
That's right.
Now I want our both guests to assess the present administration and the way that it promotes or does not promote the rule of law in all these cases that we've been discussing.
Well, even some of us who are supporters of this government will be very truthful to tell you that we are not too happy with the issue of observance of the rule of law by this present government. The examples are legion. begin to find very incriminating evidences in cases like Dasuki's matter, even this Ezakazi's matter, Showore's matter, and then lately now, Jalingo's matter, because it involved both the state and at the federal. Because maybe the state will observe what is going on at the federal and they will take a cue. Oh, if the federal does not obey, what stops us, from doing this? Why some of the governors are highly intolerant of any criticism. They are very intolerant to any opposition. You don't go and begin to tell them this is what to do. And we are in democracy, for God's sake. And I think that Nigerians must rise. Honestly, any opportunity that I have, I use it to really advise Nigerians that we must rise to hold government accountable. Anyone that is in leadership position must be held accountable. There is nothing wrong in criticizing. There is nothing wrong in pointing out some of the errors, some of the flaws of governance. There's nothing wrong in that. And so if you are doing it, any government should be very happy that you have citizens who are speaking out. Like in my own case, Abia State, I've told them by October, I will be taking Abia State government to court on issue of local government election. They have not been able to conduct any local government election for years, and they have been using this caretaker committee to run local government council. So we must begin to hold every state government, every federal government officials to account.
We'll like to say a very big thank you, Mr. Chukwuemeka and Mr. Ubani, for being here. We'll definitely have you sometime soon and talk about this issue once again.